Good morning, everybody. This is Billy Trout with the Tennessee Department of Revenue and our taxpayer education section. And on behalf of our staff in taxpayer services and the Department of Revenue and our commissioner, David Geragino, we welcome you to this presentation of the New Business Workshop. So you're in very capable hands because Katie Julian, who is on our education staff, will be marshaling you through all of these things. And we're very glad that you're here and that you'll be actively engaged in trying to learn more about how your taxes work at the state level. And we will do everything we can today to be able to answer your questions. And Katie will kind of tell you about that in her opening remarks as well. And I'll be monitoring your chats and questions and things like that and popping in and out at different times to help out too. But essentially, this is just an overview. Probably not going to be able to tell you every single solitary thing on all state taxes, or we'd be here for a week probably. And I don't think we want to do that. But it's a great way to kind of get started on your journey in the tax world. So from that perspective, I think you're in for a good hour or two of good training this morning. And of course, we are recording this and we'll be posting this to our website as well. So, Katie, I'll just be quiet and let you take over. And we appreciate everybody attending today. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you, Billy. And hello to everyone joining us live today or watching this video later. Happy to have you here. We've got a little poll going on if you haven't noticed. Looks like the majority of people in here so far are have started a new business within the last year. Um, that's what I would expect to see here. We've got about a handful of you that are looking to start a new business. Very cool. You are really doing your homework and on the ball joining us today. Started a business in the last year. The majority, like I said, of you have started a business in the last year. Glad you're here with us. If you've realized there's something that we discussed today in this workshop that you think, I may not have set myself up quite right in this way or that way, it is never too late to fix it. So fixing it early on, like within your first year of business, is great before things get too far out of whack. We've got a few people that have started a new business outside of the last year, a handful of tax professionals, and a few others. I'm not sure what that would be, just some support maybe. But glad to have you all here with us today. Hopefully you can hear me. If not, if something goes wrong or goes wacky during our webinar today, we have found that a lot of people, if you just leave it and then join it back again, sometimes that takes care of it. Of course, as always, you can test your audio settings in within the app here. We will be recording this webinar, and it'll be available on our website either later today or tomorrow. You go to tn.gov/revenue, then click on taxpayer education and then new business workshops. That is also where you will find a PDF version of everything that we're going over today, which will allow you to click on the hyperlinks. Of course, you can't click on hyperlinks directly in WebEx here, but if you download that PDF version, then you will be able to there. We've got a long morning. Like Billy said, if we wanted to go over everything, we'd be here all day, all week, something like that. But we are just giving an overview, but it's still going to take several hours. We're going to take at least one break. We've got the chat open to where you can send Billy or I a chat during this whole day. And then if it's something relevant to exactly what we're talking about right at that moment, Billy may join in and address that question in the moment, or we may use a couple of little short breaks that we're going to take throughout to address questions that have to do with the topics that we just discussed. So of course, links and manual pages that we have in this presentation are subject to change. Our manuals certainly are updated very often, so those pages can change, but regardless, you'll find the information in the manuals. So moving right along here, like Billy said, we are going to be going over new business tax related stuff with regards to state taxes. We're not going to cover anything regarding your federal taxes today. We are going to be talking about the steps to setting up your business, How do you dot all your I's and cross all your T's before you get started? And like I said, for those of you who have already started, if you see something or hear something that strikes a nerve here and say, wait, I'm not sure if I did that quite right, or I might have gotten set up wrong when I was at the county clerk's office or something like that, then we're here to help you with that. The next thing we're going to talk about is the basic tax law. We're going to be talking mainly about business tax, sales tax, and F&E tax. There's a lot of state taxes we have. If you're a restaurant and going to be serving alcohol, you may have liquor by the drink. If you are opening up a gas station, you might have the gas tax, things like that. There's lots that we're not going to go over, but we'll tell you where to go for those resources. And then finally, we're going to be going over where you can find help and all the resources that we have. Throughout today's session, we're going to be sharing links with you to resources, but we'll really focus in and hone in on those resources, how to navigate our website and our TIN-TAP system in that third portion of today's webinar. All right, well, getting started here. For new businesses, we have a great resource on our website. I'm going to take you over there, go on a little field trip in just a second to show you where this is. But it's basically an overview. We started this a couple years ago. It's fairly new, this For New Businesses website. There's a great checklist on there that will guide you through everything you need to get started with all of your Tennessee tax accounts. So let's take this moment to go over to our website now. So I'm at tn.gov/revenue. It's our homepage here. Um, Lots of places I'll show you on here, but take you on a big tour of it later. Right now, I'm just going to show you where this new businesses page is. Scroll down and it's a tile that says For Businesses. And then there's a tile that says For New Businesses. This is where you can see the checklist, the printable worksheet. You can click there. Setting up a new business, getting your licenses and permits, establishing your tax accounts. Are you exempt from certain tax accounts? How to register your tax accounts and file and pay all your tax accounts on TIN-TAP. That walks you through all that. We're going to be going over a good bit of that. I just wanted to show you where it is. It will go into more detail after today's webinar. If you want to go peruse this website, I highly recommend it. Lots of great information there. So the first thing we're going to go over now is setting up your business. So for structure and entity type and also licenses and permits, we have a whole slide dedicated to those here in just a minute, but just going to go over briefly the other items on this list here. Your business name and establishing your business name here. You can visit the Small Business Administration's website for tips on how to select a business name. Also, the Secretary of State's name availability database may be a helpful resource for you. You can search to see if a business name is already in use. Regardless, and we'll talk about this here in a minute when we talk about setting up your entity. If you are a sole proprietor, you will be setting up your tax accounts with the state of Tennessee in your legal name, your name. So if I'm a sole proprietor, my tax accounts would be in the name of Katie Julian. Billy's would be in the name of Billy Trout. And then your DBA, you're doing business as name, would be under that. Setting up your address, business addresses, a location address, building structures of brick and mortar will have a physical location address. If your business is online business, then your location address is going to be the physical place where your records are maintained. For a lot of people, that's a home. A location address cannot be a PO box. So we'll talk about this later. Getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but for business tax and sales tax, those are location-based taxes where a portion of the tax amount is going to get allocated back to the local jurisdiction. So that's why we have to know where you're located. Again, if it's a brick and mortar somewhere, that's easy. But if you're an online business, it's going to be where your records are maintained. Most often, that's a home address. Do you need to register with the Secretary of State? Good question there. So any corporation, limited partnerships, LLCs, business trusts, anyone chartered or organized to do business in Tennessee has to register with the Secretary of State and file annual reports. Sole proprietorships do not. We will discuss a little bit more of that later, but that will be something that you'll have to determine what type of entity you are and whether you need to register with the Secretary of State. Do you need an EIN from the IRS, an employer identification number, also called an FEIN? It's a federal tax identification number, and it will be needed if you are going to have employees for sure. But you will be registered if you're a sole proprietor. You won't register with us using that EIN. Even if you have one, you would register using your social. We'll discuss that later. But if you're going to have employees, um, uh, you'll definitely need an EIN. And it's used for setting up all other tax accounts except for sole proprietors and single member LLCs. Determining the start date of your business. The effective start date, uh, business start date, is the date that your tax obligation begins. So if you have chartered with the Secretary of State, for example, prior to registering with us, you'll use the effective date of the charter. Your NAICS code. NAICS is the North American Industry Classification System code. You'll need to determine that when you register with us, or if you go to the county clerk first to get a business license. That's something that will be determined when you register with us. There's a little drop down where you just plug in what it is that your business is doing, or if you're filling out your application at the county clerk's office, it'll say, what is your business going to do? Of course, sometimes that'll be a lot of things, right? But just primarily, what type of business are you? Um, your fiscal tax year, that's something that you'll need to determine. Most businesses are on a calendar year, 12 consecutive months beginning January 1 and ending December 31. You can have different fiscal years, but that is something you'll need to determine. And all of these things need to be the same across all of your accounts. So you want to make sure you determine these factors, like I say here, before registering for accounts, licenses, and use the same information, that same fiscal tax year, the same EIN, same business name and addresses. You want that to be consistent across all the agencies that you're going to be dealing with over setting up your business. If you realize that, I think maybe I set up with the Secretary of State with a July 31st, or sorry, July 1 fiscal year, and I've registered with the Tennessee Department of Revenue with a calendar fiscal year. We can fix that for you, but you need to get on that soon. Let's fix that for you sooner than later. Another thing that you're going to want to determine is identifying your directors, shareholders, and officers of your business. A lot of your applications for setting up your tax accounts, definitely for registering with Secretary of State. And again, that's something that changes over time. Directors, officers, shareholders, and you just want to make sure that you're updating information like that as you go. Same with all of this, updating your address, updating your NAICS code, any kind of updates you have. A lot of people just assume that I'm dealing with the state of Tennessee. I'm going to update it with the Department of Revenue, and everywhere else it'll get updated. Unfortunately, at this point in time, it's not like that. You have to actually reach out to each individual agency that you deal with, and we'll talk about all the different agencies here in a minute, but just to even update your information as time goes on. Okay, so now we're going to dive into deciding your structure or entity type. This is something that we at the Department of Revenue cannot legally help you decide what to do, but there are implications to your tax accounts. All right. So anyone who registers a business in Tennessee must ensure that they indicate their business structure, which is necessary also to establish your tax accounts. Sole proprietorship, that's one individual in business alone. You're going to set up your tax account with the social security number of the individual. This is a common thing that people sometimes get messed up with early on. So if you're a sole proprietor, but you realize that you actually set up your business license or your tax accounts with us using an EIN, reach out to us. We'll be letting you know later on how to reach out to us. But that's something easy to fix, but definitely something that needs to be fixed. So if you're a sole proprietor, you're going to get set up using that social. For partnership, that's generally two or more persons. Tax account is going to be set up under the employer identification number. LLCs, you've got a single member LLC, which is one individual or one entity, or a multi-member LLC, one or more individuals or entities. Single member LLCs can be set up using the social security number of the individual or an EIN. Multi-member LLCs must be set up using the EIN. You've got PLLCs, professional limited liability companies. These are companies that are engaged in rendering professional services like law offices, doctor's offices. Those are going to be set up with us using the EIN. Corporations are chartered legal entities set up with us for tax account purposes using the EIN, and nonprofits who are granted tax exempt status by the IRS are also set up using an EIN. If you need an EIN, you go to the IRS for that. Again, that's something we cannot help you with. You get that outside of us. But here's how you would get set up depending on your entity type. We've got more information on our setting up a new business page on our website that I just showed you about each entity type as well. Ooh, the fun stuff, licenses, permits, and more. This is a lot. Before I even started working at the Department of Revenue, I was helping a friend, or kind of helping, trying to help a friend set up a business. And I was overwhelmed with how many different places you need to go. And at the time, there wasn't really a place to go where you could find out what all you needed even. We've got great resources now in addition to resources like this webinar. Here in a few minutes, I'll be sharing with you some other resources that'll help you know where to go and what to do, where all you need to go. But this is a pretty good chart right here that just lets you know where to go for what. You're going to need, most likely, most businesses with very few exceptions are going to need a business license. You go to your county and city clerk's office for that. If you're located, making an assumption that you're located within the state of Tennessee, we're not talking about out-of-state businesses right now. We've got some resources for you if you are an out-of-state business, but for in-state businesses, whichever county you're located in, you're definitely going to need a county uh, business license. Depending on the amount of gross sales that you have will determine which kind of business license you need. The only entities that won't need a business license are if you're going to make under 3,000, or there are a few exceptions like manufacturers, entities like that, but we'll go over that. Few exceptions there, but you get that from your county and city clerk's office. A lot of cities or towns or municipalities, as we call them, also require a business license, and we have actually a map on our website that tells you which municipalities require a business license, so you can check that out also. I think I share a link to that in a few slides when we talk about business tax and business license. To charter in Tennessee or register your business, you'll go to the Tennessee Secretary of State. Again, that's for partnerships, corporations, LLCs, business trusts, not sole proprietors. If you're a sole proprietor, you can skip that step. So for your FEIN, you will go to the IRS. We've already mentioned that. That's for partnerships, corporations, LLCs, business trusts, and any business that's going to have employees, regardless of structure, will need an EIN. Common misunderstanding here, unemployment insurance tax. It is a tax here in Tennessee, but it's one that we at the Department of Revenue do not handle. It is handled through the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, and that's most businesses with employees or payroll. I'm not exactly sure about all the different what all goes into that, but if you are going to have employees, you need to check out Department of Labor's website about carrying unemployment insurance tax. So professional licenses, there are some professions in Tennessee that require you to have a professional license. This is different than a business license. Contractors, cosmetologists, insurance agents, there are more that need a license just to be able to do their profession. That is handled through the Department of Commerce and Insurance and is maintained, renewed through the Department of Commerce and Insurance. There is a tax that if you hold certain professional licenses, there's a tax called the professional privilege tax that you will owe to us. We're not going to go over that today, but if you do have a professional license, that might be something you want to check out on our website. We have a good webinar dedicated to, we call it ProFee, professional privilege tax, but we won't be going over ProFee tax today. If you are going to be serving alcoholic beverages for consumption on premises, also manufacturing alcoholic beverages, you're definitely going to want to go to the TABC for that, for all licenses regarding that. We do have several alcohol taxes. We just had a webinar last week, was it? dedicated to alcohol taxes, going to be distributing, manufacturing, or even just serving alcohol. We work closely with the TABC on that. And if that pertains to you, I would recommend checking out our webinar that we just did last week. And we're going to be having more webinars in the future breaking down each of the individual alcohol taxes as well. So for all other tax accounts, that's us, the Tennessee Department of Revenue. Most businesses, with very few exceptions, are not going to have any type of tax account. Uh, Everyone, if you have a business and you have gross sales at least over 3,000, you're going to have some sort of tax account at some point. All right, so now we're going to share just a few resources with you that can help you get started, whether you are in that group that is just thinking about starting a business, or even if you've already started your business but are a new business owner. These are some cool resources. The Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development, or ECD, has this Smart Start that's an online tool that helps you visualize your business model and connect with resources across the state. It's a really cool portal. I recommend checking this out, and their Smart Start guide. The portal kind of walks you through. It's kind of like a wizard that's yes, no questions and helps you know where you go next. But then just the guide. It's a pretty extensive PDF manual that walks you through getting a business started in Tennessee. The Small Business Development Center is a network of centers that provide counseling and training to help small business owners start, grow, and expand their businesses. They have lots of free resources on their website. They've got a step by step business planning workbook and some more really cool resources. SCORE is volunteer business counselors, advisors, and mentors who offer individual free or in some cases low cost counseling throughout the whole state. I mean, throughout the whole country, but definitely in Tennessee. You can get hooked up with local business counselors and advisors that can help you and mentors. They have some pretty cool online workshops. One is called the Startup Roadmap, and another one called Simple Steps for Exiting Your Business, something that nobody wants to start thinking about as you're starting a business, but it's something to keep in mind that sometimes closing it out correctly when that time comes is very helpful to have resources to help you do that. There is a Small Business Association business guide. They have information about funding programs, federal contracting. They've got learning platforms and local assistance as well. All right, so that's the bulk of just getting started and basically the preliminary steps to setting up your tax accounts. Next, we're going to dive into deciding which tax accounts are applicable to your business. We're going to be showing you the resources and showing you how to have access to all of your accounts on TinTap. While I've been yapping over here, are there any questions that, Billy, are there any questions that anybody's had relative to just the stuff we've just talked about?
Yeah, so these people are paying attention to you, Katie, because they've been tearing chat up, and I've been typing,
See
misspelling
that.
words left and right. Crazy. But
Forgive Billy
anyway,
for his misspellings.
yes, I don't know. I I need more coffee. But anyway, yeah, great questions. Like Katie said, these resources that we've got here, with the SCORE and Small Business Administration and stuff like that, that's really a good thing because if you're just starting out, you're not going to really know exactly what you need. But even being in like a session today and trying to learn before you start doing something is a big deal too, because what we find is that a lot of people will, just go in and do stuff and not really know what they're doing and get in, behind what they were supposed to do. For instance, just a real quick thing. Everybody thinks that an LLC is what you need. Okay. You got to be an LLC. Not true. You may not need to be an LLC, but you might. And you won't know that until you know. And then, by the way, if you are an LLC, you'll have to register with the Secretary of State. You will have to pay us, as Katie's going to tell you in a second, franchise and excise tax every single year, even if you do, quote, nothing with your LLC. It's $100 a year minimum. And that is a decision that you have to be very careful with. Okay. LLCs are fantastic for a lot of businesses, but not necessarily every business. And that's really up to you guys. Okay.
And you can switch it. If you start off as a sole proprietor and want to later down the road decide you want to become an LLC, you can do that, but you've got to keep us in the loop and there's some
Yeah.
implications to your accounts.
And Shelley, I see your comment on there. That's kind of interesting from your viewpoint there. You don't have to be an LLC. You don't, but you might. And I'm going to also tell you something real quick, and I'm not trying to be cute or anything. I'm just trying to say, your buddy down the street that knows stuff, that thinks that they know how to set up businesses, LLCs, and this and that, or they saw something online. Got to dig deeper, folks. Got to,
Mhm.
got to, got to really know what you're doing. Okay. Talk to people that know things. Okay. And that's why we send you to these resources. Okay. That's it from
Cool.
my perspective there, Katie.
All right, well, let's plug along here then. I'll keep going and start diving into business tax here. All right, so we're starting with business tax. Like I said, we're going to be going over the basics of business tax, sales tax, and F&E tax. We do have great tax manuals on our website. They can seem a little bit overwhelming because they're quite lengthy, but if you are a business owner in Tennessee, I really recommend that you at least check out the business tax manual and the sales tax manual. And again, if you're liable for F&E tax, a corporation and LLC, check out that manual as well. Um, just to see how they're laid out, and just even if you're not going to read it word for word and from beginning to end, at least seeing that it's there and seeing what kind of information is in the tax manuals. You can search them. Actually, I'll take you. Oh, let's go on another little field trip. I'm going to take you over and just kind of show you a little bit about how those tax manuals work. So I'll be referring to our tax manuals a lot today. Okay, so you can get to them a couple different ways. While I'm talking about business tax, I'll go ahead and just show you how to get to it from the tax page. So I'm going to click on taxes on our, there's a tile for that on our main page and also at the top here under taxes, click on business tax. Each of our tax types, let me go back for just a second. Each of our different tax types has a whole page dedicated to it. So for those taxes that I'm not going to be going over today, you can see, bail bond tax, coin operated amusements, fantasy sports, on and on. Tons of taxes here. Some of these are locally administered, but each tax has its own page. So for business tax here, you can see there's information here. You can click on due dates and tax rates. Um, Registration and licensing, the different classifications. So all the way down here to tax guidance, this is where you're going to see different pieces of information that are helpful and specific to each one of our taxes. There's a link over to the tax manual, different tax articles, important notices relevant to this tax, tax rulings. Oh, I'm going to show you this real quick. Real quick. This is where the city and county business tax dashboard. I was telling you earlier about how if you wanted to find out if the city or town that you're located in has business tax, you can hover over each county and it will tell you if there is a city within that county that imposes a municipality within that county that administers business tax and licensing. We've got some smaller counties here. Like in Sumner County, you can see here, most of the municipalities within Sumner do impose business tax. If it says business tax there, that also coincides with licensing, business tax and licensing. You see here that looks like Mitchellville does not have business tax and licensing. So that's a way to see if the municipality that you're located within has business tax. There's also a printable version of that. But I digress here. I wanted to show you the manual. So you're going to click on tax manual here. We have prior versions. Of course, the laws change every year, or we update these manuals with clarifications and just additional information often. You can see we've got lots of, we first published this manual in March of 2021. We've had several versions since then. So our current manual, we just updated this past June. But all of our manuals are set up pretty much the same way. Let's zoom in a little bit here. And you're going to see a table of contents at the beginning where you can click on each of the headings in the table of contents. If anything, I would at least just scroll through the table of contents just to see what strikes you for our manuals. But if you didn't know this already, if you click Control F, and this goes for an online PDF, any web page, if you click Control F, you can search that for any term. So if I'm going to search this whole document for the term contractor, you can see here there's 153 instances of the term contractor here in this manual. And if you scroll through, you can see the different places where even just in our table of contents, that term comes up. So just a good way to search our manuals is that way. Okay, so back to the slides here. This is just a brief overview of business tax and licensing, which you'll see here go very hand in hand. It's based on your gross sales, annual gross sales. These are not net receipts, gross receipts. If you make under 3,000, no business license is required, therefore obviously no business tax and no renewal. It's basically kind of considered a hobby at that point. If you're starting a new business and not sure if you're going to even reach that 3,000, there's technically no need to even visit the county clerk for a license yet until you reach that point. That's up to you. But for any entity that has gross receipts annual between 3,000 and 100,000, note that that threshold changed by law in the last year. That used to be 10,000, but now for all you new businesses, all you'll know is this new way. Between 3 and 100,000, you just need a minimal business license. Along with a minimal business license, no business tax is required. And you'll just renew that minimal license each year directly with your county or municipal clerk. I did see a person, and I'm not sure if Billy answered that. Someone asked in there, I went to the county clerk's office and I got a standard license, and I think I just, no, hold on. That's a different thing. I saw someone say that they got a minimal, but they've made over 100 now. Um, that is something that's going to happen. You might start with a standard and go under 100 and need to switch to a minimal. You can go back and forth between a minimal and a standard. If you make over 100, you definitely would need a standard, and you just need to go to your clerk's office to purchase that standard. And then when you get a standard license, that automatically registers you for a business tax account. We'll talk a little bit more with that here in a minute. But switching from a standard to a minimal, if you have a standard right now, maybe the clerk issued you a standard just without even discussing your sales threshold with you, or maybe you just got a standard thinking you would exceed that $100,000 threshold, but didn't reach out to us about that. We were dealing with that a lot given the last year and this law changing the threshold. So if you want to switch from standard to minimal, reach out to us. If you make over 100,000 in gross sales annually, you'll need a standard business license. And along with that, you're required to have a business tax account and file business tax annually. And when you file and pay that annual business tax, we send information over to your clerk, your city and or county clerk, and let them know that you filed and paid business tax, and then they renew your license. We don't renew the licenses here at Department of Revenue, but for that standard, if you hold a standard business license, filing and paying your business tax will be what it takes to renew your license with your clerk. We do have a whole webinar that is dedicated to these changes that are in the threshold change. If you want to watch that, I saw that we had a handful of businesses here with us today that have been in business for over a year. So for those of you, that might be relevant for you to check out that business tax law changes webinar. Okay, so who is subject to business tax? In-state businesses with gross sales over 100,000 in any county and within municipalities engaging in business tax and license. Again, we do have some exceptions. Mentioned earlier, if you're on here and you are an out-of-state business, if you have substantial nexus in Tennessee and are engaged in activities that are subject to business tax and have gross receipts that are over 100, then you're going to be liable for business tax. We do have a whole webinar dedicated to Nexus for out-of-state businesses that will help understand Nexus more, substantial Nexus and bright line presence and all that. So for out-of-state businesses that may be on here, check out that webinar. We do have a whole set of special rules for contractors that we are not going to go into detail today. But if you're a contractor on here, and that when I say contractor, that's contractors that are dealing with constructing and making improvements upon real property and installing tangible property, like installing appliances, building homes, that kind of thing. We're not talking like computer IT contractors, that kind of contractor. We're talking about like building contractors. There's a whole special set of rules that apply to them, and we've got a great webinar that we updated recently for you if you are a contractor. So who is not subject to business tax? Casual and isolated sales. If I sell my car and it's just my personal vehicle and I'm selling this one car and I make over $3,000 on it, that doesn't mean I need to go get a business license. That's just considered a casual and isolated sale. Now, if I'm going to start buying cars for cheap and selling them for a little more, if I'm going to sell more than just my own car, that gets into it's a business. That's not a casual or isolated sale. If I have a yard sale, that's fine. If I make $10,000 at it, which would be really cool, uh, I still don't need a business license. But if I'm going to start holding yard sales, garage sales uh, every month, that goes beyond casual and isolated, right? Also not subject to business tax would be if your gross receipts are under 100,000. We talked about that a couple slides ago. You just need that minimal business license and no business tax required. You would renew your minimal business license at your clerk's office every year. Some services are exempt from business tax, services such as veterinary, accounting services, engineering services, and more. We've got more information about that in our manual. Again, these are just services that are exempt from business tax. Not all services, but some are. Some entities are excluded from business tax, such as manufacturers, radio stations, and then some sales are exempt from business tax, such as real property. When I sell my home, if I make over a certain amount, I'm not going to need a business license. Wholesaler to wholesaler sales are exempt from tax. Lots more information about this in our business tax manual, a whole chapter dedicated to it. Chapter 8 is about who is not subject to business tax. But most entities are subject to at least business license in the state of Tennessee. So some basics. This is just business tax in one slide, in a nutshell here. Business tax is your gross sales, which is all sales derived from products or services, times your rate, which is based on what classification you are and whether you're a retailer or a wholesaler. Talk about that for just a minute here. Classification is something that you're going to determine. There's 5 different classifications. When you go to your county clerks, if you start there with your business license and you're getting a standard business license, one thing I want to note is that you want to make sure that you're set up the same with your city and your county based on what classification. So if you're on here and you have a standard business license, you've already taken that step and you've already visited your county and or city, I'm going to ask you just to make sure that it's the same classification on both, because sometimes the right hand doesn't talk to the left hand, and your city might set you up as one classification, your county as another. Now, classification is going to be based on your dominant sales, so sometimes that can just be kind of confusing. You look at if you're selling if you're a restaurant but you're also selling merchandise, let's say, it's going to be what your dominant sales are. Um, so we'll talk a little bit more about classification. Retailer or wholesaler, that rate is also based on whether you're a retailer or wholesaler. That's not something that you can determine when you first get your license. You're going to have to wait and see at the end of the year where 50% or more of your sales, wholesale sales or retail sales. That is what's going to determine, because there is a different rate depending on if you are a retailer or wholesaler. And again, that's just determined by if you are 50% or more one or the other. Then you're going to have a few deductions and credits. Deductions can reduce the amount of your income before you calculate the tax you owe. Credits can reduce the amount of tax you owe. An example of deduction is returned merchandise or sales in interstate commerce, which means the product that you're selling is delivered to an out-of-state customer, a customer located out of Tennessee. Amounts paid to subcontractors, for example, if you're a building contractor, those are deductions. Credit can be given for certain things. Most common credit is for amounts that you paid in your tangible personal property tax, which is that local tax that you'll get from your local property assessor's office every year if you're a business. That's based on what your business owns. So there is a credit you can take for that on the business tax return. So you've got gross sales times the rate minus some deductions and credits, and that's going to equal your tax due, which is due on the 15th day of the fourth month following your fiscal year end. So if you are a December 31 fiscal year end business, then the 15th day of the fourth month is April 15th. I want to say, very important here, for those of you with a standard business license that are filing business tax, your business tax is going to be due on the 15th day of the fourth month following your fiscal year end, but your business license actually doesn't expire till a month later. So if this pertains to you, your fiscal year end is December 31, tax due on April 15th, your business license is going to say it expires on May 15th. Don't look at that business license expiration date and think you've got until that day to file your business tax. You can file your business tax return on May 14th, but you're going to have penalty and interest. It's going to be considered late. It's due on the 15th day of the fourth month following your fiscal year end. We've got a cool webinar out there on filing the business tax return that's going to go into a good amount of detail about rates, deductions, and credits, and all that good stuff. And there's also a help video on our website about how to file the business tax return on TINTAP. And we did a business tax basics webinar just earlier this year that is going to go into a lot of detail about everything that we are talking about today in this short session. This is just to give you an idea of the tax rates. Business tax rate is very low. I said we had 5 different classifications. There's 5 subtypes of class 1 here, then class 2, class 3, class 4, and there's 2 subtypes under class 5. There's a retailer rate and a wholesaler rate for all of these except for class 4s and 5s and 1D. So very low rates there. There is a minimum of $22 per license that you have. So for those of you with a standard business license in your county and your city, you're going to have a $22 minimum for the county, $22 minimum for the city. So there's a minimum of $44 there if you have a license in both, a standard license in both your county and your city or town. Okay, we're not going to get into detail here, but just to give you an idea of the types of deductions that there are, sales of services received by persons in other states, um, returned merchandise when the customer is given a refund, sales of tangible personal property in interstate commerce, that's selling something where the customer receives possession of it in another state, so especially for online sales there, cash discounts that are allowed and taken on sales, repossessions, that gets a little bit complicated, uh, amounts allowed as trade-in value for any articles sold, bad debts. This is a big one if you're a contractor. Amounts paid by the contractor to a subcontractor that holds a business or contractor's license. You can take a deduction for that. And there are some federal and state excise taxes that you can take a deduction for on your business tax. So just keep those in mind as you're operating, that you'll back those out on the return when it comes time to file your business taxes. All right, registering for business tax. Couple different avenues here, a couple different doors in here. The first is when you obtain a standard business license from your city and county clerk. I've mentioned this a few times. It automatically registers you for business tax. That is in a perfect world. If you are if you do obtain that standard business license from your clerk locally, you will receive a letter from the Tennessee Department of Revenue. If you don't receive that letter, you're still responsible for making sure you are registered for business tax. Like I said, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen with business tax and licensing. Our systems talk to each other, but if you've received a business license and you have not gotten a letter from us saying, hey, you're now registered for business tax, you may want to reach out to us about that. Um, I've already shown you that business tax dashboard that lets you know which municipalities, cities, towns require business license. The other way to register for business tax, you can register a location in TINTAP. You can, if you haven't even been to your clerk's office at all yet, you can go ahead and register for business tax. I would recommend, for those of you who have not done this yet, it's a little easier to start at the clerk's office. If you did start with us, then you are going to need to still visit your local clerk's office and pay that initial $15 license fee. All right. If you already have a business, you've already got a business tax account, you're just adding another location, that is something you can do within your TINTAP account, is adding a location. If you do that, again, you're still going to have to go back to that clerk's office and purchase your initial license from them. I don't think I mentioned this earlier, or might have alluded to it, but that first initial license, if you're purchasing a standard business license, which means you're grossing 100K or more a year from your clerk's office, you're going to pay them $15. And again, like I mentioned, renewing is filing and paying your business tax renews that standard license. You're never going to visit the clerk's office again unless you need another business license. For minimal business licenses, you don't deal with business tax. We love you, but we don't care about you in terms of tax purposes. Good for you. You'll just need to visit that clerk's office each year to purchase that. Just give them $15 and get another minimal business license. More clerks are going to an online process for that, especially since there are so many more minimal activity licenses now with that threshold change. So how to file for business tax. As I've mentioned, business tax is due on the 15th day of the fourth month following the fiscal year. The license expires a month after that. And typically, there is no option for a filing extension. I have seen our commissioner offer an extension to businesses located in districts where there's a natural disaster. Um, I believe during COVID, there might have been a small business tax extension. In extreme circumstances, like if the business has suffered a fire or flood, something like that, there can be an option for an extension, but typically no option for a filing extension with business tax. You can see on this timeline here, if you're a visual person, the timeline assumes that this is an entity that has a end of a December 31st fiscal year end. The business tax return is due on April 15th, which is the 15th day of the fourth month, and that license is going to expire, that standard business license is going to expire a month later. This is just a link to the business tax basics webinar that I told you about. Um, it's an hour-long webinar that I recommend. You can go to our um, webinar video library and view the PDF of that. But if you're a new business, I'm going to say if you're here, you already care enough about your business to do the research and to learn more. I would recommend watching that hour-long webinar just to learn more about business tax basics if that pertains to you, if you're a business making over 100,000. All right, before we move on to sales tax, I'm going to take another little stop here to see if Billy, if there have been any questions that maybe would be good to. Your questions are going just to our panel, by the way, not going out to everyone, just to protect confidentiality and stuff like that. People have sensitive business tax questions or tax questions. But so Billy, did you get any questions that you think would be good to address for the whole group?
I'm laughing because, hey, Katie, these people are awake. Okay.
They
I'm
are.
just
Look at
telling you.
this. I'm
Oh,
scrolling.
yeah, they beat me down. I'm sorry. So I have attempted to answer as many as I can. So I'm going to apologize to those of you that I have not. I'm going to kind of go backwards here just for a second. Um, let's see. It's sort of hard to do. We talked a lot about, different kinds of registrations. And Katie, a lot of things that people seem to be wanting to know more about are like registering with the Secretary of State's office versus us and what's required. I want to just say, number one, we do work with the Secretary of State's office closely and share some information between the offices. But if you've got questions about that registration with Secretary of State, you probably really need to talk to them. Okay.
It's a pretty
And
they've gotten their process of registering your business with Secretary has gotten easier. It's an online process now, and they've got a really good website with FAQs and good information on it. They've
yeah, and
beefed it up.
just to verbally tell you, their phone number is 615-741-2286. Again, 615-741-2286. One other participant, Katie, was talking about, they said, okay, so what if you don't register yourself properly? Well, what could happen? What would a business, what kind of problems would they have? Do you want to comment on that?
Gosh, that's kind of a loaded question in a lot of ways. Not registering properly can lead you to not paying taxes properly, which can get you in collections. We've got there are legal ramifications to not to operating without a business license, for example. If you're talking about just if you have started your business and you're an LLC, but you haven't registered with the Secretary of State yet, you will actually register with the Secretary of State based on the start date of your business. So, it's better late than never, I guess you could say, when it comes to that. Same with us. If you have realized that, oh my goodness, I've been operating, I made over 3,000, I haven't gotten a minimal business license, or I made over 100, I haven't gotten a standard business license yet. Never too late. You will be liable for taxes for some back taxes due, but you would need to register for us as soon as you realize it. Um, any other ramifications you can think of, Billy?
Not, not particularly. That's probably the best general answer that we can give. The one thing that I've seen a couple bring up here too is about the business licenses, the minimum activity licenses versus the standard and paying the tax and all that. For 2023, we did allow businesses to file and pay a tax online. They could file and pay that tax online with us, and then they would effectively be renewing their license. Okay. But like this chart says that Katie flashed back to you right here, y'all, we really don't want you to pay this tax. If you don't owe this tax under state law, you shouldn't be paying the tax. You should just be paying a license fee. Okay. The license fees are a little bit cheaper than the tax. So it's to your advantage to do that. And we want to help you. The 23 year was sort of a transition year. And when we get that, so people were allowed to do that. I don't know what will happen for 24. We haven't been told yet if we'll continue to allow that to happen. So stay tuned, I guess you could say. But we would really recommend businesses that have under the $100,000 to reach out to us and let us change your accounts. Okay. We sent out something north of 100,000 letters out to different businesses saying, hey, we're changing your account, or we need you to contact us and let us know to change your account. Please, please, please. Oh my goodness, how many tens of thousands of people have not told us anything yet? Um, that's pretty typical, and it's just the way it is. It's been that way for years. But don't be that guy. So, when you know you can fix it, fix it. So that's when you call us at 615-253-0600. That's our call center number. Or you send us that email for help at revenue.support@tn.gov. And Katie's going to show all this to you later on. You don't have to write all that down right now. But reach out to us and let us help you adjust things before they become April 15th nightmares. Okay. So Katie and I know all too well April 15th is Bedlam every year because everybody says, oh, I need to change this or I need to fix this. Don't be that guy.
Or April
Let's,
14th.
or April 14th, or worse, April 16th. So, you know, we don't want people to pay extra money, guys. We don't want any of you to pay extra money. That's why would we give you education and want you to pay extra money? We want you to be educated and to do things the right way, right? So that's what you're trying to do today. And, we're here to save you money and to have you pay exactly tax that you owe, not a penny more or less. And that's always been our philosophy. And you may not always feel that way from other governmental agencies, but you should from us because that's the truth. Okay.
I want to mention too, Billy, when I worked for our collections division for a short time here with Department of Revenue, it broke my heart literally just to see how many businesses when they got the call from me from my division saying, "Hey, you're in collections now. You didn't pay business tax." The amount of businesses that had no idea that they were even liable for business tax. They went and got that standard license from the county clerk's office, maybe ignored the piece of mail they got from us or whatever, and had no idea, and now we're in collections. And
Yeah.
some really sad things can happen if our collections agents can't get a hold of a business or get ignored by the business. And it can get into this stage where there's levies and liens placed and all kinds of bad stuff. So just knowledge is power here, and that's why everyone who's on here, I'm proud of you all for even being here and learning this stuff, because you're going to be way less likely to get into any kind of trouble with it, and to keep things, it's easy. I will say this too: it is not uncommon for things to get a little out of whack with tax accounts. Like I was mentioning, just something as simple as, you registered with the city with one classification and the county with another. That's going to set up kind of two different profiles for you. Okay, so that's why these things are important, to make sure everything is lined up correctly. That you've got one of those first slides I was on that said making sure that you're set up with the same entity type across all the different agencies that you're dealing with to set up your business, that you're using the same fiscal year in, all these things. It's all fixable, but definitely fixing it, the earlier the better, with getting everything straightened up and aligned correctly.
Yeah, and Katie, one of my favorite stories, and I think you've heard it before, is from a guy that called me years ago, and I said, well, we sent you a letter about this, and he said, well, I got some kind of letter from the state, and I didn't know what it was, so I just threw it out. Okay, guys, I can't fix that for you.
Yeah.
If you get a letter from any state agency, especially the Department of Revenue, please open it, please read it, and you will find in the letter some sort of phone number, name, website address, or some combination thereof to reach out and get somebody to help you. Okay. But ignoring the issue, we typically will see this in sales tax, which Katie's getting ready to talk about here in a little bit, where people have registered for sales tax and they haven't really gone into business, but yet they've set their account up and they get assessments. So we'll talk about how to avoid that in the next section also.
um
I
couple
got these letters for thousands of dollars that I don't owe.
yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So we can fix it, guys. But you're part of that. You have to work with us so that we can help you. Okay. And anyway, Katie, we got a couple that popped up here while we were talking, and I can pop these out to you really quick, and then you can go on to your next thing or break or whatever you want to do. Um, can I use a PO box as a business main address? Hey, guess what? No, you cannot. You can use it as mailing address. Okay, we have to have your physical address. Okay, the reason we do, well, there's several reasons, but one biggest reason is because we have to take the local government's portion of these taxes and make sure that they get that money back. If we don't have your actual physical location of your business in our computer, then we're going to do that wrong. And we don't want to do that wrong. We want to do it right. If you're an out of state business, it's not as it's not the same exact reason, but there is a reason that we have to locate you physically. Okay. Now you can use whatever you want to for a mailing address. We
Mhm.
don't care. Okay. Also, one other thing, if you use a registered agent to register you for taxes in our state instead of going through us, sometimes they will use their address. That's wrong. That is incorrect. And if you get something that says, this is the address of the registered agent that you're using, let us know. We need to fix it. Okay. Um, another person said if a business was to move across the state and there's a new city or county that's not requiring tax, do I close the original account? Okay, well, number one, um, if you're talking about sales tax, that's not even a thing because sales tax applies statewide. So you're done with that. We do
But
need
you
to
would need to
know,
change your address. Oh, you're about to get to
of
that. Yeah.
course, yes, yes, we do have to your location and all this other stuff. The other thing on that too, guys, for business tax and sales tax is I closed my business there and moved. When? When did you do that? Was it in January or was it in October? So the when makes a difference too. So in other words, if you had a location change, let's say the end of September, you moved from Knoxville to Oak Ridge. Okay. Well, cool. So we're going to close out your Knoxville at the end of September and open up your Oak Ridge the 1st of October, right? Well, when it's time to file business tax, we'll have to have two locations, right? Your old one for Knoxville, which you still owe money for that while you were there, and then the Oak Ridge, which you will owe some money for that location. Okay. And sales tax again is tied to these locations definitely and all that too.
Moving
Okay.
locations is not an easy question to answer, honestly, because there's so many different scenarios. If you're moving, because sometimes you could be changing. What if you're in the same strip mall and you're moving from suite A to suite D? That's not going to have a whole lot of tax implications. We still need to know your new address and all that, but moving jurisdictions. So if you're going to be moving your location address, that's definitely something. Uh, that I would reach out to us about, honestly. That might be a just to see if you need what the best route would be. Do you think that would be good advice if they're moving locations to just check with us first to make sure? I mean, it's
Yeah.
definitely self-service. You can do it on your own on TinTap, but you might need to visit your clerk's office
Well,
and
and Katie, not to be too negative, but I'm just telling you from doing this for years. Um, we typically will see emails coming into us, 24 hours a day, honestly, from
mhm,
all kinds of places. But um, one thing we see a lot of is around due dates where people start getting nervous about things that, again, that they have not adjusted. The locations, the different things are not showing up properly or have got duplicates, like you mentioned that earlier. So, you know, if it's 8 o'clock at night on Saturday night and you're getting ready to file something, and you want something changed, I got news for you. We're not there. Just
mhm.
saying. Not that we don't want to help you, but it's not a thing until Monday morning. So then if you're late, that's not good. You don't want to be late. But again, being proactive, checking everything out and lining things up ahead of time is a good idea too. Um, and I've got a couple of questions in here about uh, out of state sort of
Mhm.
things and what other states require. We're not going to be able to help you on that, guys. You got to contact those states. Okay. If it's Virginia, Kentucky, Michigan, whoever it is, doesn't matter. They have their own rules and laws. Okay. Um, Typically, it's usually sort of similar to what we do in Tennessee, but it's not always that way.
Mhm.
Somebody who's under $3,000, do they need to file? No, you don't. You really need a minimal activity license and you don't really need to file with us. Your classifications on business licenses that are minimal activity licenses are okay to mess with, but if you really think about it, if you're not paying tax anyway, does it really matter? It doesn't really matter a lot. But if you're selling clothing, someone's asking if that's class two, and it is. So it is classification two. Um,
If you have
and
a minimal business license right now and you feel like you're not going to meet that $3,000 threshold, really my best advice to you would be just don't worry about renewing it come expiration date. If your expiration date on that license says May 15th, then you don't need, by law, you do not need a business license if you make under 3,000. Just hang tight and don't worry about renewing it. That's what I
mhm.
would do.
Yeah, and Rashonda asked me to repeat the thing about the registered agent and their address,
Hmm.
and I'll do that real quick. So there are companies out there that if you pay them money, they will just register you for everything. Like you don't want to mess with the Secretary of State and the Department of Revenue and the federal government and da da da. You just want to pay somebody to do something for you. Okay, that's fine. No problem. Just make sure that they are capturing all your information properly and that your location address is right and that they have not used their location address. Okay. So if they're located at 123 Main Street in Knoxville, but you're really located in Smyrna, Tennessee, we need Smyrna, Tennessee. We
Hmm.
don't care where they are. We care where you are. Okay. And again, it's all about trying to get money back to the local governments so that they are properly um, funded. Quite honestly, is what it comes down to. And someone asked here too. Someone named Katie. We have more than one Katie in here. If you have under 3,000, do you need to close the account? Oh yeah, absolutely. Call us or send us an email, one or the other. Say, hey, I'm done. I'm under 3,000. Can you open back up later? Absolutely.
Hmm.
Can open back up tomorrow. You know, it's no problem. We can fix you. We can fix you, right, Katie?
We can always fix it.
Yeah. And that's basically it. So, Katie, what do you want to do now?
Let's move along. Let's go on to sales tax. And after I finish sales tax, we'll take a quick break. How about that? We've
Sounds
been in here
good.
for an hour,
I'll
so
see you in chat, people.
okay. All right. So this is always something that's a little bit hard to do, I think, is to switch gears from business tax to sales tax. We're just totally different tax here. Um, keep that in mind. All right, we've got a sales tax manual. Here's the link to that. Love our manuals. All right, here's sales tax basics on a slide, if there's such a thing. So sales tax applies to dealers engaged in the business of making sales of taxable products or services in Tennessee. The retailers are responsible for the tax and are to collect the tax from customers. There is a companion tax to sales tax. It's called use tax. You might also hear of sales tax as sales and use tax. Um, Use tax is kind of a whole different thing in some ways. We're not going to talk a lot about use tax today. We do have a webinar coming up about it though in December. But all right, so moving on here. So sales of tangible personal property or TPP are generally taxable unless specifically exempt by law. There are some exemptions, such as if the purchase is made by an exempt entity, if the product is exempt and just by nature of what it is, or if the usage of a product is exempt, such as manufacturing, agricultural usage. Um, on the other hand, sales of services are generally not taxable unless the law says that that specific service is subject to sales tax, or if the service is part of the sales price of the tangible personal property. Um, we do have a whole webinar dedicated to services subject to sales tax. So if you do provide a service, um, then I would recommend watching that webinar. This little paragraph right here will answer a couple of your questions about which services are taxable. But if you have any questions about it, this is a great webinar, and we've got information in our manual as well. But normally the
Hey,
services that are, yeah, yeah,
Katie, can I just jump in real quick?
please do.
So, here's one thing that I learned a long time ago. Maybe that'll help you guys too. So, Katie says here on her slide, sales of TPP, tangible personal property, that's stuff, right? Most stuff is taxable. Okay. Most things. Okay. And like it says there in the blue box. But then in the other blue box where it talks about services, most services are not taxable. Again, for sales tax, we're talking about sales tax. We're
Sales
not
tax.
talking about business tax. Business tax and sales tax are apples and oranges. Okay. So just to understand that. So what we want you to understand is most services are really not subject um, to the sales tax. All right. But there are some, and they're listed on the slide, and there's a bunch of other details in the manual. And of course, like Katie's got that link here for our sales tax webinar as well that you might want to go into all that too. Sales tax, by the way, guys, is about 60% of what we bring in the Department of Revenue. It's the big dog. It's the large animal in the room. And we have to get it right. And that's why we spend a lot of time on that. Okay. Thanks. I'll be quiet.
Thanks, Billy. Don't be quiet. Jump in and interrupt me more, please. I mean that. I'm not being facetious. Okay, so rates for sales tax. Generally, there's a state rate plus a local rate, and that's going to equal the total amount of sales tax that's due. There are some special rates, though, such as food, digital products, what we call single articles, and more. A little bit more about that later. Okay, so are you going to need to register for sales tax? First question you're going to ask yourself is, does the business have a physical presence in Tennessee? That goes for online businesses that are based here, right? If you have an online business, but you live in Tennessee, your home base is here, yes, you have a physical presence in Tennessee. If the answer to that is yes, and if your in-state tangible personal property sales threshold of 4,800 plus annually is met, then you will need to register and file Tennessee sales tax. If the in-state service sales threshold of 1,200 annually is met, then you need to register. If those thresholds are not met, then you are not liable for sales tax. I do want to say there's a caveat here. So let's say you are not sure if you're going to meet that, if you're selling stuff, things, which almost all are subject to sales tax, and you're not sure if you're going to meet that $4,800 sales threshold annually. I will say if you end up meeting that threshold and you didn't charge sales tax on the first few $1,000s of stuff that you sold, you're still liable for sales tax on those on what you already have sold. So maybe a good idea to go ahead and register for sales tax if you think you're going to come anywhere close to that, because then it lands on you. Whether you collect sales tax, if you're the retailer, whether you collect sales tax on the item or not, it's still due. All right, if you do not have a physical presence in Tennessee, if economic sales threshold of $100,000 is met within a 12-month period, then you must register and file for Tennessee sales tax. Also, if substantial nexus is met. Not going to go into all the details about that right now because I don't think we have a whole lot of out-of-state um, businesses on here with us today, but we do have a great webinar dedicated. In addition to the Nexus webinar that I mentioned earlier in the business tax section, that talks about Nexus for all of our tax types, our main tax types. This is a great webinar that's reporting out-of-state sales by delivery destination. Billy mentioned this, and I've seen several questions in the chat. People talking about, well, if I sell to such and such state, do I have to charge their tax? Excuse me. That is something where you're going to need to check with the sales tax laws of each state that you sell into. Like Billy said, a lot of them are similar. A lot of them have a economic sales threshold of 100,000, but some may be different. That's going to be on you to check and see what the tax nexus laws are regarding the states that you do business in. All right, a little bit more about tax rates here. The general state of Tennessee sales tax rate for most tangible personal property and services is 7%. All right, there is a state sales tax rate on food and food ingredients of 4%, and that is that's not prepared food like food at a restaurant. That's like grocery items, food and food ingredients. There is a notice here that goes into detail. There's information in our manual about what is defined as food and food ingredients, but this is a good notice that kind of puts the definition of that in a nutshell for you. All right. So in addition to that 7% or 4% if it's food, any county or incorporated city can levy a local sales and use tax. It is going to be no higher than 2.75%. There is a link here to how much the local rate is for every municipality in Tennessee. I will tell you that when you register for sales tax, earlier I mentioned that sales tax is a location-based tax. You're going to use your physical location where you're located as a business, whether that's a storefront or if you're an online business, it's your home address. when you plug that address in, our system knows based on the address how much sales tax that is due. But you may need to go ahead and look it up on this rate map to see how much you're going to need to charge. If you have a point of sale system or point of sale system software, a lot of times that is automatically included in your point of sale software. But if you don't have fancy software like that and are just needing to charge sales tax on your service or the goods that you're selling, you'll need to charge the 7% plus your local rate. Look up your local rate here. There is a special rate for specified digital products. We have a special webinar dedicated just to this, but basically it's a state tax rate of 7% and just a standard flat local rate of 2.5%. That local rate's not going to vary depending on which jurisdiction is in. It's just 2.5. Again, a whole webinar dedicated to this. If you feel that you may what you sell is a digital product, then that pertains to you. Check that out. Single articles, not everybody's favorite topic here. So if there is a single item of tangible personal property that is over $1,600 in price, there's some special rules that start applying here. The entire price is taxed at the 7%. The first 1,600 is going to be taxed at whatever the local rate is, and the amount that's between 1,600 and 3,200 is going to be taxed at a flat 2.75%. Kind of weird. I still haven't found if there's even another state that has anything like single article tax, but we have an entire webinar dedicated to single article tax. This would apply to you if you sell items that are priced over 1,600, high dollar items. Some clothing and accessories could be that. I mean, some people have purses and shoes that are over 1,600, jewelry, cars, any items where a single item is worth $1,600 or more. That single article is going to apply to you. Check out that webinar. As I mentioned, there are some exemptions for sales tax, use-based exemptions. Just one example of this, there are others, but it's pollution control. There are some products that are exempt from sales tax, like textbooks, school meals, some healthcare items. More information about that in our manual, chapter 18. It's about exemptions. Some entities, just because of who they are exempt from paying sales tax. U.S. government, state of Tennessee, Tennessee counties and municipalities, those have to be supported by an exemption certificate. Nonprofits, their sales to nonprofits are going to be exempt. They have to present you with a certificate as well. Qualified farmers, again, that's going to be something that the agriculture exemption, if a farmer has that exemption, they're going to be able to provide you as the seller with that exemption certificate. Same with qualified manufacturers. They have to apply for this exemption. If you are a retailer and you're selling to people that show you a certificate, let's see, I can't remember if I have a slide about this. No, I don't. I want to show you something. Because if you're selling something, it could be that you're going to be presented with somebody that says, I don't know sales tax. And you're going to go, oh, wait, you don't? Okay. First of all, you need to make sure that certificate is within date and valid. The government exemption is going to be a form that's a fillable form. Again, that's not a person from, if you're making sales here in Tennessee and someone provides a state of Virginia sales tax, they're with the state of Virginia government and they give you their exemption certificate, that doesn't count. It has to be just U.S. government, our state of Tennessee, or any of our counties or municipalities. For nonprofits, there's going to be a form that they have to show you. Make sure that form is in date. Same with the agricultural exemption, same with the manufacturing exemption. And what I want to show you is a place on our website where you can look to see if an exemption is legit, just to make sure, because you don't want to be kept holding that bag, right? Okay, so let's go to the top here, tn.gov/revenue, our homepage. I'm going to go over to TNTAP. This is where, if you already have tax accounts, you're probably familiar with this. This is where you would log in and to your tax accounts, but we're not going to do that. We're going to go down here to information and inquiries. And This is where you can look up to verify a sales tax certificate. The certificate type, you can see here there's different types of sales tax certificates. If you are selling something and you have a customer provide you with a certificate that says any of these things on here, you can take that, look it up, plug the number in, submit it, and make sure that it is a legit certificate. All right. The resale certificate. So when you register for a sales tax account, you're automatically going to receive what's called a certificate of resale. Okay, this is going to be issued by location. So if you have multiple locations, you're going to get one for each of your locations. And it is to purchase items. You, as the business, can purchase items that you intend to resell and not pay tax on those items. Okay, so you present this. If you're a business that's going to go, you need to stock your shelves. You're going to use the certificate to go buy items, not paying sales tax on those, and then you're going to charge sales tax when you sell them. It is not meant to buy things for your business, furniture for your business, or cleaning supplies. You will get in big trouble for doing that. Don't do that with it. It's just for items that you're going to be reselling. For example, if you're going to be going to a big box store like Costco or Sam's and buying things, some stuff you're going to be using for your business, maybe some cleaning supplies, whatever, some stuff stock in your staff room with snacks or something. Those are items you're using. If you're going to be purchasing items for resale, for example, you're going to be purchasing items that you're going to be making food with. I would put those on two separate invoices. You want to buy the stuff first that you're going to be using. You're going to pay sales tax on those. The next, then run through all the stuff that you're going to be reselling. Use your resale certificate for those. Um, that comes directly from audit. They, I think, run into that particular situation a lot, and I've heard them say, tell people to separate those orders out. A resale certificate does not expire, but is no longer valid when a location is closed. And again, it can only be used for items intended for resale. So if you are a retailer and someone presents you with a resale certificate and says, I'm purchasing all this stuff from you, I'm going to go resell it, they need to present this to you. And if you feel more you need to maintain copies of these on file for sure. Maintain copies of these resale certificates that are provided to you. You can always go and check on the website where I just showed you to make sure that it's legitimate. We do have a whole webinar dedicated to the topic of resale certificates. Registering for sales tax. So this is something that you can do on TINTAP. Just going right back over to our website real quick. Back over to TINTAP, tn.gov/revenue, TINTAP, to register for a sales tax account. Oops, I was already over there. Exemption and registration right here. If you already have, let's say, a business tax account, then you can also register for your sales tax account from within once you're logged into TINTAP. There's a way to register for a tax account that way as well. Very important here. Billy mentioned this just briefly. You are going to be liable for filing a sales tax return beginning from the date you open your sales tax account, even if no sales are made during that period. If no sales are made and you file the return timely, which I'll get to that in a minute, but it's tax accounts initially are set up monthly, just file zero. It's easy to do. File zero. Again, when I worked in collections, so many times we would get businesses that would fall into collections because they opened up their sales tax account several months before the business started because they needed to have that resale certificate, right? They needed to go purchase items that they're going to be reselling. Well, they didn't realize that they then had a sales tax account that they needed to start filing on, even though the correspondence that we send you and everything says that. Maybe it's just overlooked. Um, and our system creates assessments, and those assessments are really big to begin with. It can be even $500 a month. If you have one of those assessments, but you didn't make sales, you don't owe that amount. You just need to go in and file sales tax for what you actually did take in. Um, so Definitely something we can fix for you though. If this pertains to you and you opened up a sales tax account a few months ago and haven't been filing on it, reach out to us. That's one of those. Get in touch with us and we can fix that for you. Filing for sales tax, it is going to be due monthly on the 20th day of the month following the period. Based on your sales, you can set up annual or quarterly filing. There's more information about that on our website, or you can reach out to us. But again, once an account is open, filing must begin even if no sales are made. File 0 if you need to. With sales tax, just like with business tax, there's no option for a filing extension except in very rare circumstances with natural disasters, stuff like that. But typically it's due on the 20th of the month following the filing period. Couple of good resources for you here on sales tax. We've got a whole webinar dedicated to completing the sales tax return. Uh, if you have point of sale software, if you have, a lot of times it'll create a report for you that you can submit to our online filing system. There's a help video on our website on filing the sales tax return and lots of information in our manual regarding filing the sales tax return. This slide about how to file is going to be, this is the same for business tax, F&E tax. This is just kind of a snapshot of what it looks like once you're logged into TINTAP. Online filing is required, except in very rare circumstances will we accept a paper return. Just assume online filing is required if you're here on this webinar today. So you're going to see your account listed, and if you don't see your account listed but know you have an account, we're going to talk about that later. But you want to, once you see your tax account, you're going to have the options to make a payment, view and file returns, or some additional actions. To file the return, you're going to click on View File Returns, and then from there it just kind of walks you through the steps. It'll ask you if you have any sales to report, stuff like that. So for those of you that are just needing to file a 0 right now, I know we've got a lot of new businesses on here, so that is going to be the situation you're in. It's very easy. You just log in, click on File Return. It'll ask you if you have any sales. You say no, submit, done. Easy as that. Um, so it'll ask you if you have a software vendor. There is information about software vendors, as I mentioned. You go to tn.gov/revenue, click on e-filing information, and then click on electronic filing using a software vendor. Some instructions there for you. Those are getting more and more common. A great webinar that gives you a good overview, better overview than what I just gave you. So a longer one, a whole hour dedicated to sales tax basics. Watch that webinar when you get a chance. So we'll come to another little stopping point here. We've switched gears several times. We've already talked about the initial stages, how to set up your business, where to go for what, licensing, permits, all that. Then we've discussed business tax and sales tax, two very different taxes. So again, you got to kind of put different hats on when you're thinking about each one of those. We will maybe discuss some questions here in a minute, but let's take a little break. We've been talking for an hour and a half here. We'll take a little break and then come back, go through a few of your questions that are about stuff we've already talked about, and then we'll move forward. How about 5 minutes? We'll come back at 5 after. For those of you on Eastern time, let's make that at 11:05. For those of you on Central time at 10:05, we'll meet back in here, all right? All right, welcome back, everyone. That was a short break, but I still got a lot of information to get through. I wanted to just take a couple minutes to go through some of the questions that I see in here. Looks like Billy answered a lot of them. Just a few that are sticking out to me. Let's see here.
Yeah, I've been trying to answer these good old questions here.
You've
These
been
folks
busy.
have been real busy, and I think these are great questions, by the way.
They really are.
Really, people are thinking, and that's a good thing. Um, yeah, so just to reiterate how important it is to get things exactly right one more time. If if your registration is incorrect and you're like, oh man, I messed up, or whatever, literally just send us an email or give us a call and let us know how we can help you. Okay, we adjust things all day long, every single day, times dozens. Okay, and that's fine. We it's okay. If you make a mistake, let's fix it. But let's not let it get to be kind of crazy, like we were talking about earlier too.
Jay has a question here. Do I need a sales tax account if my sales are reported by my online sales platform, which sources sales from across the country? My account advised
Yeah.
that I could close my sales tax account and just racking up late fees wasn't necessary. Few things here. Definitely no need for late fees. But if you want a resale certificate, then you would need to keep a sales tax account open and maybe reach out to us and just have your filing frequency change. But you will get late fees if you don't file on time. Online, so a lot of, if you're only selling through Etsy or through Amazon or something like that, then yeah, they're going to be collecting and remitting sales tax. Those marketplace facilitators is what those are called. But again, if you want to maintain your resale certificate for purchasing items that you're going to resell, then you would need to keep a sales tax account, right, Billy?
Yeah, that's right. And if a lot of people wouldn't even need the resale certificate, but they might.
Right.
So if you do, you my joke is you can't be halfway pregnant. So you're either are or you're not. So if you have the if you have the resale certificate, then you've got the tax filing obligation. Okay.
Hmm.
So you've got to do that. And that monthly return is required, or that quarterly or annual, or whatever filing
Hmm.
period you've got. You've got to file. You've got to pay if necessary, but you definitely have to file. Okay. Like I mentioned to one person here earlier, um, even if everything's exempt, like maybe you send everything outside the state.
There's
Okay.
a
To
question in
say,
here about that. Someone just said
yeah,
all my
sailing interstate
services.
commerce, right? Well, we don't know that until you tell us.
Hmm.
So that's why we would send assessment letters out saying, hey, we owe some kind of amount of money and but you don't, of course.
Hmm.
So letting us know proactively what's going on there is a big old deal. Absolutely.
The question
Uh,
that came in about that, well, let me stop you since you just brought that
Go
up. There
ahead.
was a recent question about that. The services, taxable service, but it's delivered to someone who lives out of state. There's an actual line on the exemption on the sales tax return for
Mhm.
sales of services that are delivered out of state. So you would
Right.
just exempt it out there.
Yep. And just one more time for those of you that may have joined us late, these slides are on our website right now in a PDF form. And there's the link for that. And we'll be doing the recording. We're recording this now, and it'll
Hmm.
be posted probably tomorrow. Okay. Maybe this afternoon, but more than likely tomorrow
Hmm.
on our website as well. Okay.
Here's a question. We sell a service that falls under the exempt from sales tax umbrella. But if we were to
Nice.
purchase a tool, which is then sold to a client as part of that service, I'm guessing we would need to charge sales tax on it. So,
Hmm.
yes, that is correct. You would need to charge sales tax on it because that's a taxable product.
Hmm.
And if you would pay sales tax on it unless you had a resale certificate in which you could use that. But most likely, if you are providing a service that is exempt from sales tax, you would not have a sales tax account. Um, and people say, well, if I'm paying sales tax on it, just you can part of the definition of sales price is you can include in there really anything you want in a lot of ways, but you can upcharge it. If you bought $100 item and you're paying, close to 10% in tax on that, you want to charge 110 for it or upcharge it, charge it 210. That is totally your prerogative.
Hmm.
But you're going to need to charge sales tax on it, whether you
Yeah,
paid it or not.
and to talk about the contractors for just a second, we had a couple questions on that too. So, typically contractors are what we call the users and consumers of the things that they use to fulfill their contracts. Okay. So that means that when they go to the lumber supply stores, et cetera, and buy things, that they have to pay sales tax. Okay. So when they go back to their customer and they say, okay, I will replace your roof or I will do your whatever for X number of dollars. Obviously, the contractor is smart enough to make sure that they charge that customer more money so they don't eat the sales tax, right?
Mhm,
But what they can't do, or what you as a contractor could not do, is to bill that customer for sales tax
mhm,
because you're not a dealer. You're not registered for sales tax, and you should not give um, the appearance of charging sales tax on that. Okay, if that makes any sense at all. But and there are some difference. There's some weird things in the sales tax manual. By the way, sales tax manual, folks, 347 pages. Good luck reading that and understanding every nuance of it because I refer to it all day long because I have to look up stuff. I know that our staff does too. We know some things off the top of our head after working here for years, but some stuff we have to look up. And there's other resources too. So just understand it's very deep. Also, one other fun fact, sales tax is the only state tax, to my knowledge, that since its inception, which by the way was 1947, why do I know that? I don't know. But anyway, um, that has been changed every single year by the Tennessee legislature.
I did not know
So,
that.
some
Fascinating.
sort of change has
Mm,
happened every single solitary year.
makes
So
sense.
this upcoming year, it'll be the same thing. We don't know what it'll be. We're not the legislature.
Mhm.
But at the same time, what's good about that, and Katie is real good about it too. We monitor legislation, Katie and I do especially, and we also publish on our website every spring legislative updates and have a special webinar. Typically, what, July, Katie, is when we do that one?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, so
Every
we'll
July.
have somebody from our legal department go through the major things that have changed in all the different tax laws for the year. Okay.
Here's a really good question from Jeremy S. that goes back to sales tax. I'm sorry, business tax. Follow-up question on Amazon sales. So Amazon's like a marketplace facilitator, what we refer to as marketplace facilitator. All gross sales made on their platform would be counted towards our need for a minimal or standard business license? Yeah, he's asking. Correct. Yes, you are correct.
Hmm.
And I want to say, I'll mention this at the very end. We've got an upcoming webinar because I know this is pertains to a lot of you. That's for marketplace sellers and marketplace facilitators. It's going to be our November webinar, which I think the last our monthly webinars are always the last Tuesday of the month, but I think yeah, the 26th. So the 26th of November, is going to be that one. Yes. So Amazon, Etsy, eBay. If you're selling on any of these marketplace facilitator sites,
Hmm.
we're going to talk two different things just briefly, sales tax and business tax. They are going to collect sales tax and remit it. Anything that you that you sell outside of that platform, uh, let's say you go set up at a little local fair or you have your own website as well, any of those things, you would collect sales tax on those. They would collect sales tax on the things that they sell. If you're selling exclusively through an online marketplace facilitator, uh, then they'll collect sales tax on all your sales. Business tax is different though. You will pay business tax based on your gross receipts. So based on everything that was sold by you on that online platform, combination of the online platform and your own website, and it's your gross sales in Tennessee for the year is what you would pay business tax on, or,
Mhm.
or to better answer your question, that's what you would base that threshold amount to figure out if you need a minimal or if you need a standard, and then therefore business tax. So it's going to
Mhm.
be based on, yes, your
Yeah,
total
and
sales.
that's 1,000% right, Katie. And quite simply, it's this simple. Um, Amazon, people like that, online sellers, they just don't collect business tax for people. It's not a thing. It's not a thing at all. So tag you're it. It's gross receipts, like you said, Katie, and not sales tax. So gross receipts tax. By the way, the rates on business tax, and I know that we didn't get too deep into that back in the presentation, are incredibly small. Everything is way less than 1%. So you're not talking about a ton of money unless you made a ton of money. And if you made a ton of money, excellent. Good. That's the point of being in business. But at the same time, yeah, most of you on this call today, even if you are going to file and pay business tax, are going to realize pretty quickly that you're not going to be out a ton of money on business tax. Not coming. All right. Is there anything else, Katie, that you wanted to address from chat before
I
you
think
move
for
on?
the sake of time, we should go ahead and move along and hopefully have a little bit of time at the end. And of course,
Yeah,
any questions?
and let me
Yeah,
tell
go
you
ahead.
too, while you're doing that, um, anything we don't get to today, either now or later on for whatever reason, but due to lack of time or whatever, if you'll just email us these questions at revenue.support@tn.gov. That's revenue with a period and the word support at tn.gov. We will answer your question. I've got a whole team of folks that are fantastic and they know stuff. And they're smart enough to know that their manager is annoying and all that, right, Katie?
Not
See, I'm
true.
Katie's manager too, but she doesn't like to talk about it a lot. But anyway, no, we get along real well. Good folks, and we collaborate quite a bit on
Mhm.
things. So we teach each other all day long. Even the manager, even as hard headed as he is, sometimes learns a
Mhm.
couple of
Mhm.
things, right, Katie? Right.
I learn something new from Billy every day. A
And
new
I
piece of
learned something
useless
from Katie too.
information. Just kidding.
Yes. No, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. Okay, I'll be quiet, Katie, and let you move on.
All
Thanks.
right, we'll keep on trucking here. We're going to talk about F&E, um, franchise and excise tax. Just briefly here, I will say too, this month, October, now that we're in October, our webinar of the month, the last Tuesday of this month, is going to be Web F&E Basics. So, um, all right. So franchise excise tax basics here. This is our little F&E basics on one slide, which you can't cover really, but we'll do our best. It's a combination of two taxes, franchise and excise taxes. The franchise tax, which is net worth, and the excise tax, which is net earnings or your income for the tax year. That combined makes F&E tax. There was a big law change this year, but this is the way it is moving forward, is net worth plus your net earnings equals the F&E tax. Um, we have a F&E basics webinar that's out there right now that's from a couple years ago, but we're updating that. So this link to this F&E basics webinar is the one from, I think it was 2022. But like I said, we're going to have a new and improved one later this month. And here's a link to our F&E manual. Just a overview of the filing requirement for F&E tax here. This timeline is going to assume that an entity has a end of 12/31 fiscal year end. The F&E return or extension or just paying the minimum is going to be due on the 15th day of the fourth month. That April 15th day is in your head for business tax too, right? In your personal and business income taxes with the federal government as well. Unlike sales tax and business tax, there is the opportunity to file an extension with F&E that takes it's a 7-month extension. That law changed a few years ago. It used to be a 6-month extension, but now that extension takes you out to for a 12/31 fiscal year business out to November 15th. Some businesses, based on several criteria, which we'll go over, are required to make 4 estimated payments Some people call them quarterly payments, but that drives me a little bit nuts because they're not quite perfectly quarterly. You can see here. So it's basically 4 estimated payments. The first one's going to be due on April 15th, again, assuming a 12/31 fiscal year business. Second one on June 15th, then on September 15th, and then the fourth estimated payment is going to be due on January 15th of the next year. So who is subject to F&E tax? Businesses subject to the tax are entities with limited liability protection. General partnerships and sole proprietorships do not have limited liability protection and are exempt from the F&E tax. Pass-through entities like partnerships, S corporations, and LLCs are taxed at the entity level, not the partner, shareholder, or member level, which is that's the way it is in some states, but not here in Tennessee. But as we've mentioned a couple times today, these entities that are subject to F&E tax, you're looking at corporations, LLCs, limited partnerships, real estate and business trusts. Sole proprietorships and general partnerships are not subject to the F&E tax. Not-for-profits are generally not subject to the F&E tax. They've got to file the Form 990. But important to note here that activities outside the scope of those that give the entity exempt status may be subject to F&E tax. One thing I want to just mention here, even if you have not yet registered with the Secretary of State, which is required if you are any entity that's listed here in this top section here, even if you just have LLC in your name and have not yet registered with the Secretary of State as a limited liability company, you are subject to F&E tax. So earlier when Billy mentioned, making that decision to become incorporated, to decide if you want to be an LLC or a corporation, that's something to put a lot of thought into. But just so you know that if you are LLC or incorporated, you are going to be subject to this tax. Not going to go into all of these right now, but there are some entities that are exempt from the F&E tax. I want to call your attention to numbers 10 through 17 here. Actually, I'm just now seeing that I have a typo right here. That should say 10 through 17, not 1 through 17. I've got them highlighted here. I'll fix that. 10 through 17, those are entities that have to apply for their F&E exemption and subsequently renew that exemption annually. If you are one of these businesses and you do not renew it timely, there is a penalty for that as well. Numbers 13 through 17 here with the red asterisk, those may require an audit evaluation as well. And I'm thinking about, I haven't even talked to my boss Billy about this yet, but actually I think we have mentioned it. Like I said, later this month is our F&E Basics webinar. We do have some webinars dedicated to some of these F&E exemptions, but I'm wanting to redo those because they were older webinars from when we first started doing these, and would really like to hit at some point each one of these exemptions for F&E. Even if some of them are groups of exemptions within one webinar, I want to dive into details about those. So talked a little bit about that extension being possible for F&E. To receive a 7-month extension, did I say extension or exemption? Extension. I'm switching gears in my brain here. To receive a 7-month extension, a taxpayer must have paid on or before the original due date an amount equal to or greater than either 90% of their current period's liability, or 100% of the previous period's liability, or $100 if the previous period does not exist. You do any of those things and your extension is automatically granted. Also, if you have a valid federal extension that has been filed, our system talks to their system, and that also you have a filing extension if you have a valid federal extension. I'm going to talk here for a minute about minimum filing. So this is for inactive entities, or if you don't have income or assets to your business, there's a really simple way to file a minimum return. The F&E return the regular F&E return is fairly complex. It really mimics in a lot of ways the federal return. But if you are a business that you have not officially dissolved through the Secretary of State, um, but you just are inactive, you never got started but haven't officially dissolved yet, or you have registered or you started your business, but nothing's really happening yet. This is just a really simple way without even logging in to TINTAP. You just click on from our homepage, tn.gov/revenue, click on TINTAP, and without logging in, just click on returns, view return links, and then file the minimum F&E tax return. It'll ask you for a little bit of information, a little bit of account information and questions, and then you pay that $100. Very simple. I know I keep bringing up back in the day when I worked at collections, but a lot of times F&E accounts will fall into collections with us because they failed to file that minimum 100 by their deadline, by the tax deadline, and they were inactive. They were still considered, they had not yet dissolved, I should say. They had not yet dissolved with the Secretary of State. Our system does communicate with the Secretary of State's, the Tennessee Secretary of State system as well. All right, those estimated payments that I mentioned. So taxpayers are required to make estimated tax payments when there is a combined F&E liability of $5,000 or more after credits for both the prior tax year and the current tax year. So um, if you're a new business, this is not going to apply to you. If you're an established business, I know we have a few on here with us today that have been in business for at least over a year. If your F&E tax liability, what you owed in F&E tax, was $5,000 for the previous tax year and for the current one, then this is going to apply to you. The first payment is going to be due on the 15th day of the fourth month. I'm sorry. Which that's the April 15th. The second payment is going to be due the 15th day of the 6th month, or June 16th for a 12/31 fiscal year end. The third payment on September 15th, and then the final estimated payment is going to be due on January 15th of the subsequent taxable year. All right, so other tax accounts. We have over 24 different state taxes and fees. Some major ones that apply are liquor by the drink, there's tire fee, motor fuel, tobacco taxes. For information about those taxes and all the fees listed on our website, I'm going to show you again really quickly. I know I showed you when we went over there earlier, but how to get to, going to go back to the top to tn.gov/revenue. And if you click on the taxes up top here, or you can click on the taxes tile, it takes you over to the tax page for all of our different taxes. I'm going to just kind of spend just a second here and just show you we've gone over these three. If you're selling alcohol, beer, or tobacco, then you want to check out all of these. And again, like I said, the alcohol taxes webinar that we just had, you can find that in our webinar library. Don't pay attention to any of these right here. Those are for local governments, but these other taxes here are going to apply to some of you possibly. So just kind of have a look if you think that that applies to you. The local occupancy tax, I will say that is if you have a hotel, motel, or short-term rental. Occupancy tax is something that is due to the local governments. But just recently, in the past couple of years, a law changed that if you use an online marketplace such as Airbnb or VRBO or something like that, that they will collect that occupancy tax for you on the bookings that are rented through that platform. So I know that's a very common business in this state, especially is short-term rentals. Yeah, so. More details about each one of these if you click on the link there. And just one more thing real quick, we do have a webinar dedicated to short-term rentals. While I am here, and because I keep talking about the webinar video library, I think I have a slide later about this, but while I'm over here, I can't show this too often because it's just good stuff. Taxpayer education and outreach. We're on the main page now. I'm clicking on taxpayer education and outreach. Here we've got tax webinars as one of the tiles. New business workshops. This is where you'll go to view a recording of today's webinar later. And here's where you register for our monthly tax webinars. The upcoming one is on F&E tax basics. You can see we've got marketplace sellers and facilitators coming up in November. I've already mentioned that. I've told you we've got Tennessee consumer use tax coming up in December. And then we've scheduled as far out as January right now, which is where we're going to have the liquor by the drink webinar. If you scroll on down here, we've got this extensive webinar video library. We've had 63 webinars to date. If you can keyword search right here. You can show all of the webinars in one view here if you'd like to just go through. If you're a new business owner or thinking about starting a new business, I would say it would behoove you to see what we have webinars about. And we are also always open to your suggestions for what we need to have future webinars about. You can click on the video here, the video title. This takes you over to the actual webinar video, or you can click on just the PDF of it in this column for each of our webinars. So just some general tax account information here. We're going to talk about some not so fun stuff here that hopefully will not happen to any of you, but if it does, there's ways to deal with it. Delinquencies, penalty and interest do apply to any deficient or delinquent payment. There's a penalty of 5% of the unpaid amount added for each month or partial month that the payment is delinquent or deficient, and the penalty amount can be no more than 25% of the tax liability. Interest is computed at the current rate of interest, which currently, that changes every year in July. Our current interest rate is 12.5%. So you don't want to get into where you're paying penalty and interest. Collections will be made on any taxes not filed and paid. If taxes are overpaid, I saw a question about this in our chat, refunds or credits can be issued. The refund process is really simple through TINTAP now. Used to be a paper form, but now to request a refund if you do have credit on an account, you can do that. You can either move the credits to a future liability, or for your request to us in writing, we can move credits from one tax account to another tax account, or you can be issued a refund. I want to recommend all of you, every person that's in here, watch the tax compliance and collections process webinar. Again, it's not a place that you want to get into, but it can happen. It can happen accidentally even. Again, if you're set up wrong and you've got a duplicate account set up somehow, and you're getting a letter in the mail from us saying, hey, you haven't filed and paid, but you're thinking, yes, I did. Don't ignore that letter that you got from us, because there could be a problem. It's fixable. Okay, everything's fixable, but in some circumstances, you might still be liable for interest. Interest cannot be waived. Penalty, you can request penalty waiver, but interest cannot be waived. If it was something where your accounts were set up wrong, that's different. We can fix that in a different way. But just want to highly recommend checking out this webinar. It's just an hour long, and it talks about the whole process and what the letters look like that you get from us if you get into this position. I saw in the chat that someone said, oops, I did open up my sales tax account a few months ago and I haven't filed anything. Well, it's only a matter of time till you get this letter from us that says notice of proposed assessment. It's going to have this kind of exorbitant amount on there that says you owe us, because we can't read minds. We don't know if you've been selling or not. So our system just creates this estimated amount on this we call it a NOPA, notice of proposed assessment. And that kind of gets the ball rolling. If you don't reply to that, then you do go into collections. So I don't want to confuse you with talking a lot about that right now. I just want to refer you over to this webinar. Lots of great information there. So now we're going to kind of move into the home stretch here and talk about some resources. I've mentioned a few times TINTAP. That is your #1 resource. That's like online filing. If you do online banking, it's like online banking, but it's for your tax accounts. You can register for tax accounts, electronic filing for now all of our tax accounts can be done on TinTap. This is a cool feature. You can schedule payments in advance. You don't want the government to have any more of your money before you need to, right? If you have all your figures and numbers together on the first of the month, let's say it's sales tax, and you want to go ahead and file your sales tax report with us, you can schedule the payment to come out later on in the month before your due date. It automatically corrects common errors. So that's really cool. With filing, a lot of times you can't move forward if you've got something wrong in there. Of course, we can't, again, can't read your mind, can't fix your figures and your actual numbers that you're inputting. But if you've missed something, if you've skipped a step somewhere or not answered a required yes, no answer, you can't move forward and submit unless you do that. And it will let you know, just like any online form that you're filling out. There's, little asterisks or little tick marks on the box that lets you know if something's required or says, wait, you need to go back. You haven't finished yet. Same with TinTap filing. You can amend return. You can view your old returns. You can view letters from us. You can view your certificates, business licenses for most jurisdictions. Actually, Shelby, Memphis, and Davidson, Nashville, their business licenses, they don't send through to TinTap. It's up to the individual jurisdiction, but I think most others do now with a couple exceptions. But one thing I really want to call your attention to on this slide is what's in this circle right here. We recommend that all taxpayers have access to their master TinTap account. If you moving forward if you don't want to do any of your filing, you don't want to do any of that, you just want to hire a CPA, great, more power to you. We've got a lot of CPAs. I think we've got lots of tax preparers on this webinar today. Fine, great, but we still recommend that the business owner has access to all of their tax accounts on TinTap. Just so you can, at a glance, be able to see what's going on. If you ever need to if you, let's say you got a different accountant and needed to switch things, you can maintain that information through your master level access. You want to at least be able to get in there and read your letters that you get from us. Make sure that everything's on TinTap, it's green. It's not in the black, but in the green. That make sure everything's in good standing, that you don't have anything in the red, nothing in the negative. Just definitely make sure that you have master level TinTap access to all of your tax accounts. We're going to get into how to do that. If you are a third party or a tax preparer or tax professional that's on here with us today, if you have master level TinTap access to any of your clients, let's fix that. Reach out to us. We can change that and we can help you get third party access to that account instead. We actually have a whole webinar dedicated to that. I feel like I'm like repeating myself a lot when I say we have a webinar for that. But we do. If you're a tax professional, haven't checked out our TinTap for third parties, do that. It's a great one. Okay, so right now I'm going to dive a little bit into revenue help here. It's I'm going to take you back over to our website real quick. I saw pop up out of the corner of my eye, somebody said, can you show me where the webinar video library is? I'm going to show you that before I take you over to revenue help. I'm on tn.gov/revenue. I'm going to click on taxpayer education and outreach, and then tax webinars. Scroll to the bottom and there is our library. I just saw a question. Somebody said, where is the TinTap for third parties? I'm just going to type in TinTap here. Yep, there, TinTap third party access. There you go. Whoever just asked that question. Back to our homepage here, we're going to go over to revenue help. So I've already showed you a couple resources. I've showed you the tax manuals. You can get to those, like I said, through each individual tax page or under tax resources and then click on tax guidance. All of our manuals are right here.
Hey, Katie, can I tell something
Hey,
real quick?
Billy.
There's a gray box in the upper right corner of the screen. I don't know if you have an open box that's up. Don't you see? You may not be able to see what I can see. It just may be a systems thing. It's covering the top. Yeah, that.
This.
Whatever you did, just moved it.
You're talking about the search box?
I don't know. It just shows as
Oh,
gray
this.
on our side.
Oh,
Yes.
that's like my little, like my face and stuff. I don't know how to get rid of that.
Can't get rid of your face. Okay, never mind. We won't worry about it right now.
Oh, did that do it? Did that do it?
Yes, it did.
Yay. Okay, good to know.
Thanks
I
for
like
getting
that
rid of
only
your
I could
face,
see that.
Katie.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I hate seeing that there, and it always annoys me that it's there. Now I know how to get rid of it. Okay,
Okay, thanks.
thanks. All right, so here's all of our tax manuals. Great resource there. Back to our homepage. So now I've shown you the webinar video library, the individual tax pages, the tax manuals, and now finally revenue help. There's a whole tile for it here, revenue help. This is hundreds and hundreds, I don't know, maybe thousands, I'm not sure, of articles, all right? These are the topics under TINTAP, general TINTAP how-to videos, about TINTAP. There's 22 articles just about TINTAP there. About logging in, creating your username and password, information needed to create a login, gaining access to your tax accounts. I will say, this is kind of like a little bit annoying about TINTAP, but it just is what it is. When you first create a login and you get logged into TINTAP, you're not going to see any tax accounts there. You have to then gain access to your tax accounts. I think I have slides about that. So 20 articles there, TINTAP registration, registering a new location, closing a location in TINTAP, error message, so on and so forth. 11 whole articles about TINTAP registration, all about payments. Lots of articles about payments, TINTAP payments here. If nothing else, I would never expect anybody to sit here and read through all this, nor would I expect you to read through all of our manuals or watch every single webinar that we've done, but just kind of browsing through and becoming familiar with what's out there. Could save you a phone call, could save you a whole lot of headache and frustration. Just showing you the resources here to where you might could find the answer. TINTAP tax returns. Lots of information there. Okay, so that's a lot of information about TINTAP on revenue help. Each tax account has a whole section dedicated to that tax account, and you can see here within F&E there's lots of stuff. Business tax, for example, we've got 74 articles just about business tax. Okay, a lot of the information that you're going to see here is in the manual. The information in the manual you're going to see here. This might just word it in a different way. It might be an easier way for you to search. This is kind of like FAQs. Like I said, a lot of it's in the manual. You can always type in something in the search bar here, like refunds. To refund 41 results, refund request. That's for motor carrier, actually. Requesting a tax refund. If you do not find an answer, you're just not in the mood to look, or you have looked and you can't find it, or you've gotten sick of looking, you can also reach out. We're going to share some information with you later about how to reach out to us, phone and email and stuff, but an easy way to do is also just click here, submit a request, and then you just choose a little, what's this about, tax question, TINTAP, blah, blah, blah. Fill out, put your name and email, and then you can type a question directly to us. We, unless it's a tax deadline day, we get back to those very quickly for you within a couple hours. And then you have your answer in writing. So a lot of people really like that feature. Those are my favorite resources on our website. So just to give you a frame of reference here for what I'm going to be showing you here. Different TINTAP resources here. We also, once you click on TINTAP, there is a little help bubble here that's called the TINTAP Assistant. It is a bot. It's not a real person, but it is a very helpful bot. I'll say that for it. It searches our entire database for your answers. And then within the TINTAP Assistant, you can immediately send us a message if we don't answer your question. I have to sneeze. Excuse me. Okay. All right, so that's the TINTAP Assistant. Once you are logged into TinTap, so I just showed you how there is a article about getting logged in, creating a username and password to get into TinTap, okay? Once you're logged into TinTap, you're gonna see several things. There's TinTap Home, there's Manage My Profile, and then there's kind of a bar here. It's Favorites, Summary, Action Center, Settings, and more. When you first log in, you're not gonna see any tax accounts here. This example here, you see they've got a business tax account and a franchise excise tax account. You're not going to see anything. You're going to want to go to more and then gain access to an account. I'll show you how to do that though. But this is kind of just what it looks like when you log in. This is the home page or summary page of TinTap. Outside of each tax account, you're going to see actions. They're going to be fairly similar, but a little bit different for each one. Okay, so we were just on the summary page. Now we're over on the Action Center. On Action Center, you're going to see if you've got any unread messages. It's going to be kind of an at a glance if you have any balance due or any return that needs to be filed. Going through to the More tab, there is a lot to unpack here. If you need to, you can click the little plus button to zoom in. I'm going to just walk through each one of these. Under Manage Accounts, this is where you can register a new account. You can register a new location. This is where you will go to gain access to an account. So a couple of things to say about that. Again, if you've never logged into TinTap, which for a lot of you, you're a new business, that's going to be you. This is where you will gain access to an account. When you go to gain access to an account, you're going to need a few pieces of information, and it's going to help a whole lot if you have a letter from us. So remember back a couple hours ago when we were talking about business tax, I was telling you that when you register for business tax or a standard business license, you're going to get a letter from us that says, hey, you have a business tax account now. That letter is going to have a letter ID on it, and it's going to have an account ID, your business tax account ID. Letter ID and account ID are pieces of information that are going to help you gain access to your account. If you don't have a letter, if you threw it away or you can't find it, call us, and at our call center, they can help you get set up over the phone after you verify, prove that you are who you are. Payments, you can request a payment plan. You can cancel a payment plan. So there's also another way to manage payments, different types of payments. So up in Manage My Profile, that is where you can add in your banking information, stuff like that. Under the TinTap More homepage, that's just where payment plan information is regarding payments. Good time to mention, and there's more information about this if you watch that collections and tax compliance webinar. If you do get in arrears and owe us more money than you're able to pay, we do have the option to set up a payment plan for you. Under additional services from the More tab, this is where you can print certificates. This is where you can request a refund. You can also, request refund is also one of the things that it comes up for you under additional actions within each individual tax account as well. I'll just kind of let you look and see there the different things. There's bond forms. This access, this area right here, this is where you can see who has access to your TinTap account. If you are a third party, this is where you can manage all the different customers that you have access to. Names and addresses, this is where you, I can't remember if I think I may dive a little deeper into this. No, I don't. Under names and addresses, this is where you can change your mailing address. Changing location address is not so simple. As we mentioned earlier, that's a little bit more, 9 times out of 10, you have to close down a location and close an account and then open another one just to keep all the tax allocations clean and stuff. This is where you can view all your letters. It's cut off here, but the two other boxes at the bottom of the screen. One is submissions. You can view everything that you have submitted and or just saved. Any submission, any return you've been working on is going to be under submissions. And then this just says revenue help, takes you over to our revenue help, which is all of those articles that I already showed you. All right, so how to follow us and contact us. Since most of you are new businesses on here, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, try to follow us in as many ways as you can, any of these online platforms that you participate in, Facebook, X, Instagram. We put out information all the time if there's important notices, information about upcoming webinars. You can also sign up for email updates from us. Of course, here's our website. I've gone there many times today, tn.gov/revenue. You can email us at revenue.support@tn.gov for any questions that we don't get to today, or in the future, any questions that you have. It's a great way to reach out to us. Or our general tax helpline is 615-253-0600. We're here Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30 Central Time. There's a link here to the different contact numbers and office locations that we have. Since COVID, we do have offices throughout the state opened up with limited hours. What we do is we recommend if you need to go in and visit someone in person, there's a process by which they're going to first try to help you over the phone. And then if not, let you know where the closest office to you is and how to request what's it called? An appointment there.
I think the Johnson City office is currently not open.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
I think so, because of obviously from the damage.
Oh, right. Of course. I thought, oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we're not accepting any appointments over there right now, but we have plenty of people available by phone and otherwise to you.
Right. Of course. Let's see. Before we get back into the chat to answer questions for the last little bit of this, just wanted to let you know again, we've got some upcoming webinars. I've already mentioned these a few times. We should be coming up with the first part of 2025 pretty soon, Billy, right? We'll be putting those out there. And again, checking out our webinar video library. I'm going to hang out on this page right here while we go into the chat and talk about some more questions that you all have had.
Katie, I wanted to bring up one thing that one person had brought up about veterans. Um, First of all, it's safe to say on behalf of everybody, thanks to all of our veterans for their service to our country. I mean, that goes without saying, but at the same time, it needs to be said. That being said, still under state tax law, there's not too many benefits for disabled veterans. The one that I'm thinking of the most that comes up the most often is the exemption from wheel tax. When you go to the county clerk and you are able to register your car, and sometimes they'll charge a wheel tax. A lot of counties and cities, or mainly counties, have forgive that tax for disabled veterans. So that's a good thing, and you want to pursue that as well. Um, Sometimes people think that disabled veterans can buy vehicles and not have to pay sales tax. That's not true. They actually do have to pay sales tax unless they're getting a vehicle from a VA grant. Okay, there's a special program that the VA has about that vehicle. Um, and you've got that ability to do that too. But I will also say that individuals with disabilities that have certain adaptive equipment that they are required to have on their cars for operations like foot pedals or special devices on their steering wheel or whatever. Those can be purchased without paying sales tax on those items. And that goes for anybody, not just veterans, but anyone who's a disabled individual can do that too. And then I think someone here in the chat has been gracious enough to put a link here for property tax relief for disabled veterans. So thank you, Shelley, for sharing that. That's good information for everybody. So not really property tax is not really a Department of Revenue thing, but thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. Absolutely. But that's pretty much the story on that. Katie, are you there?
I'm just reading through. Reading through. Someone just gave us props saying that thank you. They felt overwhelmed before this, and that every business owner should be required to attend these webinars. I agree. Required.
Required. Yeah. Some of us think that that would be a good idea
That
too.
would be a good
But,
idea. I have two
but
businesses. Brandy says I have two businesses that are both under the 3,000 for this year. I have 10 taps for both. Do I need to close those out?
yep.
Yes. Yep. Save that, your 10 tap username and log on. You might need that in the future, but definitely go in there and make sure that, especially if you have business tax accounts for those, go in and request closure. Um, if you have a license, you might want to reach out to, I'm assuming you have a business licenses for those, both of those businesses, to reach out to your local clerks. That's one thing that our systems, I've mentioned that our system and the local clerks, our systems talk to each other. One thing they don't talk to each other about very well always is whether you've closed or not. So definitely reach out to your local officials upon closure of your license as well. Um,
Yeah, and just to reiterate too, I know we've said this several different times. If you if you're backwards on something, something's weird, you get weird letters, just call us or
mhm.
just send us an email. Hey, I got this. Do me a favor, be wise and give us an account number or some sort of way that we can look up your account before we get back with you, because sometimes we can just kind of research it and say, oh, I see what happened, this was wrong, and a lot of the things we can just fix it, but sometimes we'll just have to get some information from you and tell you what to do. And if you're late, you won't be the first person.
Mhm.
So you do have to pay a little bit of penalty and interest charges. You can, in a lot of cases, if it's a first time sort of thing, if you're late on something, you can request a penalty waiver on 10 tap, and we want you to do that. Um, Certainly, it's a good idea.
I was in the office recently, and one of my coworkers was dealing with a situation that they just couldn't find the customer was not there. Had them on the phone, they couldn't find them. Well, this customer actually, it was a situation where they were a sole proprietor, but they had set up using their EIN number, and they were providing our call center person with their social and all this other information. And so it just, the letter that they got, I think it was they basically had two accounts set up. They had duplicate accounts because they had set one up incorrectly and then one was set up correctly, and they were getting these collections letters on the one that was set up incorrectly. So one thing to look at when you're looking at, if you do get a letter from us, make sure it all looks right. It could be the situation, especially if you're thinking, I've already, don't, like I said earlier, don't ignore that one. If it says you need to file blah, 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 and you think I've already filed it, don't ignore that. It could be, look at the details of that letter, or even if the details of the letter look correct to you, still reach out to us because it could be another issue that's a little bit deeper. I think, Billy, do you want to go ahead and wrap things up for today? And we have so many questions in here. I know, Billy, you've been typing up a storm and getting to a lot of them, but if any of your questions didn't get answered, or if you can't find them in our resources, or just want to go ahead and reach out to us after this, please call us or email us. I'm so glad that you were here with us today. Hopefully you learned a lot that can help you start your business off in a successful way. Uh, or like I said, like we've mentioned numerous times, if you feel like you might be confused about the way you're set up, reach out to us for sure on that. Visit us for our upcoming webinars, and definitely on your way out today, there's a quick little survey to fill out and let us know what you thought, and if you have any ideas for future webinars. For the tax professionals that are on here, if you want to request CPE credit for this, you can do so uh, by filling out the survey when you exit the webinar as well. Billy, anything else you want to add?
No, I just want to tell Katie, thanks for all your work on this. You do a phenomenal job of getting all this together, and
Thanks, Billy.
this is our last one of these workshops for this year. It'll be weird that we'll be in 2025 when we do the next one. So
The next one's going to be on January 8th. I haven't put the link up there yet. I will today now that this one's done with, but we've already had a date for it. So if you have any friends that are starting new businesses or run across anybody over the next couple months, let them know about this event. And starting a little bit later today, you'll be able to register for the next one as well.
okay, very good. And thanks everybody for attending today. We appreciate it.
Have a good one and best of luck to you.
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.